Okay, so you want to own a restaurant, but without the restaurant. No dining room, no waiters, no sign on the street. Just a kitchen in a warehouse somewhere, quietly pumping out food for 5 different brands you've never heard of, all ordered through an app. It sounds like the smartest business model in the history of food. All the cooking, none of the overhead, no expensive corner location. No 30-person staff. No $100,000 dining room that sits empty on a Tuesday afternoon. Just you, a stove, and a phone that never stops buzzing with orders. Here's the problem. A ghost kitchen is not really a restaurant. It's a delivery app arbitrage business that happens to have a stove in it. And the moment you understand that difference, everything about how these places make money and how they quietly die starts to make sense. Because here's the part nobody tells you at the start. When you order dinner tonight from a brand called something like Nashville Hot Wing Company, 5 stars, great photos, only exists on the app. There's a decent chance it's being cooked in the same kitchen as 4 other restaurants you also almost ordered from. Same stove, same 3 cooks, 5 different names on the screen. This isn't a scam, it's the fastest growing model in the food business. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why one kitchen pretends to be 5 restaurants. Why some of them print money while the one next door cooking nearly identical food silently goes broke. And whether any of it can actually make you rich. Before we talk about money, we need to talk about what you're actually buying. Because ghost kitchen is one of those terms that gets used to describe about 4 completely different businesses that happen to share a floor plan. The first is the single brand cloud kitchen. 1 operator, 1 menu, cooking for delivery only. No storefront, no seating. It's a normal restaurant with the front half amputated. The second is the virtual brand. This is a delivery only menu that runs out of an existing restaurant's kitchen. A struggling diner that's slow at dinner might launch Midnight Burger Company on the apps, using the same grill, the same staff, the same ingredients it already has, just to squeeze more orders out of hours it was already paying for. The third is the commissary or shared kitchen. This is a facility company. Somebody builds one large building, divides it into 10 or 15 individual cooking bays, and rents each one to a different food operator. The person who owns that building isn't in the food business at all. They're in the real estate business, and their tenants happen to cook. And the fourth is the brand stacking operator. This is one company running many delivery brands out of a single kitchen at the same time. One kitchen, one crew, but 6 or 8 different restaurants live on the apps, each targeting a different craving. These are not the same business. They share equipment and a zip code, but they have almost nothing in common financially. The person renting out kitchen bays makes money whether or not the food sells. The person stacking 8 brands lives and dies by the app algorithm. One is a landlord, the other is a gambler. This matters because the economics depend entirely on which one you're actually running. So we're going to focus on the version most people picture when they hear ghost kitchen. The operator who rents a space, cooks the food, and sells it through the delivery apps. And I'll show you where the other models fit in along the way. The whole pitch of the ghost kitchen is that it's cheap to start, and compared to a full restaurant, it genuinely is. A traditional sit-down restaurant in a decent location can cost anywhere from $300,000 to well over $1 million to open once you count the dining room, the bar, the bathrooms, the furniture, the signage, and the lease deposit on prime retail space. A ghost kitchen strips most of that away. You don't need a dining room, you don't need a good corner, you don't need to be seen at all. In fact, you want to be invisible because invisible real estate is cheap real estate. An industrial unit off a highway rents for a fraction of what a storefront on a busy street costs. So the entry price drops, but it doesn't drop to 0, and this is where the first wave of new owners gets blindsided. If you rent a bay inside a commissary kitchen, the shared facility model, you're looking at somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 a month for the space alone, depending on the city and the size of the bay. That sounds manageable, but that number is just the rent. On top of it, most commissary operators charge setup fees, licensing fees, and a share of your delivery revenue. If you build your own kitchen from a raw commercial space, the build-out is where the cheap model stops being cheap. Commercial kitchen equipment. The hoods, the walk-in coolers, the fryers, the ranges, the fire suppression system runs anywhere from $50,000 to over $200,000 depending on your menu. A ventilation hood alone, professionally installed to code, can cost $15,000 to $30,000. The grease trap, the plumbing, the electrical upgrades to run all that equipment, none of it shows up in the fantasy, and all of it shows up in the invoice. Then come the permits. A commercial food license, health department approval, fire inspection, business registration. Depending on the city, these take months and cost thousands before you've cooked a single order. Add it all up. The deposit, the build-out or the bay rent, the equipment, the permits, the initial food inventory, and a cash reserve to survive the slow early months. And even a modest ghost kitchen can require anywhere from $20,000. If you're renting a shared bay and cooking a simple menu, to well over $300,000 if you're building your own multi-brand facility. It's cheaper than a restaurant. It is not cheap. And the low entry price hides a much more dangerous number that arrives later. Here's a number the delivery apps would rather you didn't do the math on. For every $10 a customer spends on your food, as much as $3 of those dollars never reach you. They're gone before the meal even leaves your kitchen. The delivery platforms, the apps that bring you the orders, charge commission on every single sale. That commission typically runs anywhere from 15% on the cheapest, most limited plans, up to 30% on the standard plans that actually get you visibility in the app. 30% is the number that matters, because the cheaper plans bury you so far down the search results that almost nobody sees you. Read that again. Nearly a third of your revenue can disappear into the platform before you've paid for a single ingredient, a single hour of labor, or a single dollar of rent. And here's the trap. A ghost kitchen has almost no other way to get customers. A normal restaurant has a sign, a location, foot traffic, people who walk past and remember it. A ghost kitchen has none of that. It is invisible by design. The only way anyone finds it is through the app. Which means the app isn't just a sales channel. It's the entire storefront, the entire marketing department, and the entire source of customers, all owned by a company that takes 30% and can change the terms whenever it wants. This is the structural problem at the heart of the business. You don't own your customers. The platform does. You are renting access to them by the order at a price the platform sets on a platform you cannot leave, because leaving means becoming invisible again. A traditional restaurant that gets in a fight with a delivery app can shrug and rely on its dine-in customers. A ghost kitchen that gets in a fight with the app is finished. There is no dine-in, there is no walk-up, there is only the algorithm, and the algorithm does not negotiate. Let's follow a single order all the way through, because this is where the whole business either works or doesn't. A customer orders $30 of food from your brand on the app. Feels like a good sale. Now watch what actually happens to that $30. First, the platform takes its commission. At 30%, that's $9 gone immediately. You're down to 21. Next, the food itself. Food cost in a well-run kitchen runs about 28 to 35% of the menu price. On a $30 order, that's roughly $9 to $10 in ingredients. Call it 9. You're down to 12. Next, packaging. And the packaging is a bigger deal for a ghost kitchen than for any normal restaurant, because every single order goes out in disposable containers. The clamshells, the bags, the cutlery, the labels, the leak-proof lids that stop the sauce from destroying the meal in transit. That can run $1 to $3 per order. Call it 2. You're down to 10. Now labor. The cooks who made the food, at a fair wage across the time it took to prepare and pack that order, might represent $5 to $7 of that $30 sale. Call it 6. You're down to 4. Out of that last $4, you still have to pay rent, utilities, insurance, licensing, equipment financing, and the delivery platform's additional fees for things like promoted placement and discounts, because on most apps, if you don't run promotions, you sink in the rankings. By the time the dust settles, that $30 order might leave you with somewhere between $1 and $3 of actual profit. Sometimes less, sometimes nothing. On a bad order with a discount attached. Sometimes you lose money on the sale entirely and do it on purpose, just to stay visible in the app. This is the brutal arithmetic of the invisible restaurant. The revenue looks fine. The margin is a razor, and every layer, the app, the food, the packaging, the labor, is a fixed percentage that scales right along with your sales, which means selling more food does not fix the problem. You cannot volume your way out of a broken margin. You can only volume your way into losing money faster. Here's something that separates the people who understand this business from the people who are surprised by it. A ghost kitchen has most of the costs of a restaurant, but it's missing one of a restaurant's most profitable revenue streams. And most new owners don't notice the hole until they're standing in it. Think about what a normal restaurant actually makes money on. It's not really the food. The food, after ingredients and labor, is a thin margin product. The real profit in most restaurants comes from two things: drinks and dine-in. A $4 soda costs the restaurant maybe 40 cents. A glass of wine marked up 300%. A dine-in customer who orders an appetizer, a main, a dessert, and 2 drinks, and tips the staff so the restaurant doesn't have to pay them as much. Those high-margin extras are what carry a restaurant through the thin margins on the entrees. A ghost kitchen has almost none of that. Nobody's buying a $6 fountain drink that cost you 40 cents when they can grab one from their own fridge. Nobody's ordering the high-margin cocktail. There's no dine-in experience to upsell, no table to turn, no ambiance to charge for. You are selling the single lowest margin product a restaurant makes, the cooked entree, stripped of every high margin thing that normally surrounds it. And you're still paying for the kitchen. The rent still arrives. The walk-in cooler still runs 24 hours a day. The gas bill, the electric bill, the water bill. the insurance, the fryer that breaks on a Sunday. All of it shows up whether you sold 100 orders that day or 4. Then there's the cost most new owners forget entirely. The delivery driver problem. The app handles delivery, but the food still has to survive the trip. Fries arrive soggy, a burger arrives cold, a bag leaks. Every one of those is a 1-star review. And the reviews compound. A few 1 stars push you down the rankings. Lower rankings mean fewer orders. Fewer orders starve the whole thin margin machine. Your food is judged after 25 minutes in a stranger's car, and you have no control over that car. Revenue arrives one small, commission-shredded order at a time. Costs arrive every single day in full. That's the tension this entire business runs on. So how does anyone make money doing this? This is where the model gets clever, and where the same stove, 5 restaurants thing finally makes sense. Remember the margin problem. A single brand, running out of a single kitchen, is fighting for scraps. But here's the insight the smartest operators figured out. The kitchen is already paid for. The rent is fixed. The cooks are already standing there. The walk-in cooler is already running. Every one of those costs stays exactly the same whether that kitchen produces food for 1 brand or 8. So why run one? This is brand stacking. One operator takes the same kitchen, the same equipment, and largely the same core ingredients, and launches multiple delivery-only brands on top of it. The chicken you're roasting can become Nashville Hot Wing Company, and Grandma's Rotisserie, and Keto Protein Bowls, and Midnight Chicken Sandwiches, all at once, all on the app, each with its own photos, its own name, its own 5-star reviews. Each brand costs almost nothing extra to launch because the expensive part, the kitchen, the staff, the equipment, is shared across all of them. But each brand is a separate listing on the app, which means each brand is a separate netcast into the ocean of hungry people scrolling at 8 p.m. The person craving wings finds your wing brand. The person craving a rotisserie chicken finds your chicken brand. They never know it's the same 3 cooks in the same oven. This is the entire trick. You're not really selling food. You're spreading a fixed kitchen cost across as many app listings as you can, capturing as many different cravings as possible, so that the expensive kitchen never sits idle. It's the exact same logic as a mall spacing its anchor stores apart to force shoppers past every smaller shop. Except here, the shops are all you, wearing different costumes. Done well, brand stacking is what turns the razor margin into a real business. The kitchen that would lose money serving 1 brand can turn a genuine profit serving 6, because the sales stack up while the biggest costs stay flat. Done badly, it's a disaster. Every extra brand adds menu complexity, more ingredients to stock, more ways for an order to go wrong, more 1-star reviews across more listings. Stack too many brands on one exhausted kitchen and the food quality collapses across all of them at once. The trick that saves the business is the same trick that can sink it. If you want to understand what ghost kitchen economics really look like from the inside, you don't need a spreadsheet. You need to look at what happened when the hype crashed into the numbers. For a few years, the ghost kitchen was the most hyped idea in food. Enormous amounts of investor money poured into companies building out huge facilities full of rentable kitchen bays, all betting that the future of food was delivery only and that they'd own the buildings it came from. The pitch was irresistible. All the growth of food delivery, none of the messy restaurant real estate, scale it across every city. Then reality arrived. The problem was never that people stopped ordering delivery. They didn't. The problem was structural, and it was the same problem we just walked through, multiplied across thousands of kitchens. The commissions were too high. The margins were too thin. The delivery platforms owned the customers, and the moment delivery demand cooled even slightly from its peak, a huge number of these kitchens, sitting in cheap, invisible buildings with no walk-in business to fall back on, had nothing to catch them. A brand stacking operator with 8 virtual brands looks brilliant when orders are flooding in, but when the app changes its algorithm, or raises its fees, or an order slump hits, that operator has 8 thin margin brands all softening at once and a fixed kitchen bill that doesn't care. There's no dine-in cushion. There's no loyal regular who walks in every Friday. There's only the app, and if the app stops sending orders, the kitchen goes silent while the rent keeps arriving. And the numbers on what happened next are brutal. Investors poured more than $3 billion into ghost kitchens between 2020 and 2022. Then the correction came. One heavily funded operator that had raised around $100 million, backed by a major grocery chain, shut down all 8 of its locations inside that chain within about 15 months, wiping out nearly half its entire footprint before pivoting to software only. Another giant, launched by a co-founder of Uber and valued at $15 billion at its peak, saw its facilities running at roughly 50% occupancy by early 2023. At 5 of that company's locations, 41 of 71 restaurants closed within a single year. That's a 58% failure rate. In 1 year, in the flagship facilities of one of the best-funded players in the entire industry. Read that number again, 58%. More than half the kitchens gone in 12 months, not because the food was bad, but because the unit economics never worked. A typical operator in that squeeze can watch a profit margin of around 15% flip to -8. That's not a rough quarter. That's structural insolvency. And notice the tell buried in these collapses. The companies that survived didn't stay in the food business at all. They pivoted to selling software, to becoming the platform, not the cook. Even that should tell you where the money in this industry actually lives. Here's the structural lesson underneath that story, and it applies to a single owner just as much as a giant chain. A ghost kitchen with a full order queue can still be one algorithm change away from insolvency. The buzzing phone tells you nothing about whether the underlying margin can survive. Let's build 2 realistic years for a mid-sized operator running a brand-stacked ghost kitchen. Not a best case, not a worst case. The 2 versions of this business that actually happen. The good year, you picked a dense city with heavy delivery demand. You stacked 5 well-chosen brands on one efficient kitchen. Your food travels well, so your reviews stay high and the app keeps ranking you near the top. You're pushing $30,000 a month in gross sales across all your brands combined, a strong number for a single stacked kitchen. Across the year, that's roughly $360,000 in gross sales. The apps take their 30%, over $100,000, gone. Food cost runs another third. Labor, packaging, rent, utilities, and insurance eat most of what's left. On a well-run operation in a good year, you might clear a net profit somewhere between $30,000 and $70,000. A real profit on a business you built for a fraction of what a restaurant costs. Not life-changing, but real. The bad year. The delivery app changes its algorithm in the spring, and suddenly 2 of your 5 brands drop off the first page of results. Orders soften. To claw your ranking back, you start running the app's promotions. 20% off, free delivery, which the platform loves and your margin hates. A key cook quits. Food quality dips across all 5 brands at once because they all share that one crew, and a wave of 1-star reviews drags your rankings down further. Your rent didn't change. Your equipment financing didn't change. A fryer breaks in July and costs $4,000 to replace. Your gross sales slide to $240,000 for the year. The commissions and the promotions take a bigger bite than ever. By the time the fixed costs are paid, you don't clear a profit at all. You post a loss of $20,000 or $30,000, and you spend the year working harder than you ever have for less than nothing. The gap between those 2 years is the whole story of this business, and notice what drives it, not how good your food is, not how hard you work. You worked hard in both. The gap is driven almost entirely by the app's algorithm and the app's fees. 2 things you do not control, owned by a company that is not on your side. So here's the question we started with. If the margins are this thin and the platform owns the customer, who's actually making real money in ghost kitchens? The answer, like almost every business we look at, is that the people getting rich usually aren't the ones you'd guess. It's rarely the operator cooking the food. That person is fighting for $1 or $2 per order against a platform that takes 30%. Some of them do fine. Most of them are running as fast as they can just to stay in place. The people with the durable business are one layer up. The commissary operator, the one who builds the facility and rents out the kitchen bays, makes money whether the food sells or not. Their tenants take all the razor margin risk. They just collect the rent, exactly like the mall owner who leases space to stores whose fortunes they don't have to share. When the ghost kitchen hype was at its peak, the smartest money wasn't opening food brands. It was building the buildings the food brands rented and selling the picks and shovels of the gold rush. And above even them sits the platform itself. The delivery app takes its 30% from every brand, in every kitchen, in every city. Whether that brand thrives or dies, it owns the customer relationship. It owns the data on what people order, when, and where. It carries almost none of the operating risk of actually cooking anything. The single most profitable participant in the entire ghost kitchen economy is the company that never touches the food. That's the pattern hiding underneath the invisible restaurant. The person cooking is renting customers from the app and renting space from the landlord, and both of those parties get paid before the cook sees a cent. The cook takes the most risk and stands last in line for the reward. Which doesn't mean you can't win as the operator. It means you have to know which game you're actually playing. The operators who survive are the ones who treat the app as a hostile business partner, not a friendly sales channel, who build their food to travel, who stack their brands carefully instead of recklessly, who guard their margin like it's the only thing keeping them alive, because it is. And the sharpest of them are always asking the same question the landlord and the platform already answered for themselves. How do I stop renting and start owning the thing everyone else has to pay to use? So can owning a ghost kitchen make you rich? Yes, it can, but probably not in the way the app makes it look. The fantasy is passive food empire money. All the cooking, none of the overhead, orders flooding in while you sleep. The reality is a razor-thin margin in a business where you don't own your customers, you don't control your fees, and the most profitable player in the entire system is a company that never turns on a stove. The romance of the ghost kitchen is the freedom. No dining room, no location, no rules. The economics of the ghost kitchen are the opposite of freedom. Total dependence on a platform that takes a third of everything and can change the terms tomorrow. The people who thrive here are the ones who hold both of those truths at the same time, who love the low entry price but respect the brutal margin, who understand that the buzzing phone is not the same thing as a profit, that a full order queue is not the same thing as a healthy business, and that in this industry, like almost every other, the person who owns the thing everyone else has to rent is the one who quietly wins. The kitchen is the cover charge. Owning the platform or the building is the business.